we just a team don't look over. We always, from last year, I wasn't here last year, but just from last year, people look at us as a pushover. But it's a whole new team, whole new leadership, whole new group. So we just gonna go out there, just take game after game. So today was the first step for us. So took it as a first step for us. So today was a good win. So we're gonna move to the next.
That was Juwan Gary after Nebraska's 66-50 beatdown over Iowa in front of a sold-out Pinnacle Bank Arena crowd on Thursday night. This is the Nebraska Shootaround podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Padilla, and joining me as always is my co-host, Jacob Bigelow, who just watched that beatdown with me. How are you feeling there tonight as we record this late night on Thursday?
I'm still trying to kind of process what the hell we just watched. That was, like you said, that was a beatdown, start to finish, wire to wire, and the sold out crowd got what they came for. I had to sneak down there. I went straight from work to Lincoln. There was a line of cars back to the bridge to get into the festival lot. There's a line of people out the door waiting to get in the door, and I was like, palpable buzz. There's a palpable buzz here. But and then Nebraska did their part. I said all week long going into this game, they needed to win. They needed to win bad. And I know there's nothing. Well, this fan base got already one win that they can savor for the year. And I know they now have another with beating Iowa for the first time since that random weird game in January of Fred's first year, which feels like 10 years ago. So,
yep. That again, 66-50 was the final. Yes, Iowa, who came into this game ranked 10th in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency, who was leading the Big Ten in scoring at over 80 points a game. Nebraska held them to 50 points and 26% shooting. 26%. Like, that's real. That's not a typo. By far their season low in points and shooting. They hadn't shot below 38% in any game so far this season, including that Eastern Illinois game. I think that was like 38.6 or something like that. So this really was, this is what it needs to look like for Nebraska. It wasn't the prettiest offensive game, but they got contributions from a lot of people. All five starters scored in double figures. And again, defensively, they just punched Iowa in the mouth over and over and over again. And the Hawkeyes had no response.
Yeah. It's never a good thing when you take 20 more shots than you have points, or 26 more shots than you have points. And that's what Iowa did tonight. They took 76 shots and scored 50 points.
They missed more shots than they scored points. They missed 54 shots from the field plus 3 free throws, and they only scored 50 points. So not even like we talk about the shots taken. They missed more than they scored. Like that. That is just kind of amazing to see. I believe it was Husker Hoop Central posted this was one of the lowest 2-point percentage games in Iowa history. As far as KenPom goes. So that was really impressive from Nebraska's standpoint. And it wasn't even like that Eastern Illinois game we talked about, that they, as a 31.5 point favorite, they lost that game by 9 or whatever it was, something like that. And that Chris Murray still didn't play in that game. And Connor McCaffrey, I believe, also missed the game.
Yes, he did.
So at least that Iowa team was shorthanded. Both those guys played. This Iowa team was full strength. We weren't where they were a few weeks back, where Ponca's own Carter Kingsbury, as a redshirt freshman walk-on, was getting legitimate rotation minutes because they just had run out of bodies. And credit to him, he actually gave him some good minutes during that stretch, but you don't want to be counting on redshirt freshman walk-ons to play real minutes for you. And that's where Iowa was. This is not that Iowa. This was full strength Iowa. Obviously, first game back, maybe there'll be some rust, but Chris Murray actually had a really good first half, 13 points, 50% shooting, the only Hawkeye with more than one bucket in the first half. And in the second half, Nebraska held him to just 4 points. on 2 of 7 shooting. He did not score until the 5:38 mark of the second half, like his first bucket in the second half. So early on, it was Chris Murray and nobody else was going. Second half, Nebraska really locked down on Murray, and Philip Rabracha was 7 of 8 from the field for 14 points in the second half after scoring 2 in the first half. But when you go in up 12, you build that up to 24, you'll live with the other guy getting 2s because that's not going to do the damage when you build up that big of a lead. You can give up some 2s, some shots around the basket. It's 3s where you can't allow them to go off from as a team trying to dig itself out of a big hole. And Iowa did not make a 3 until the final seconds. I don't know why Tony Perkins was still in the game at that point. Nebraska had all their walk-ons and freshmen and everything out there, and Perkins was still out there as a starter, but he knocked down a 3 right at the very end after Iowa had missed its first 8 triples of the second half. So just a really impressive defensive performance from Nebraska.
Absolutely. And it was more of it was kind of in the same, I had multiple people earlier today ask me how I felt about the point spread. I don't know what that was. It was at 3.5. At one point it was 4.5 in favor of Iowa. And I told multiple people, I said, this game plan feels like Creighton, Purdue, take 3. Do what you can with Murray, and then, if they're shooting 3s, hope and pray they don't go in, and nothing went in. That's putting it lightly. Iowa kind of tried to make it, feel interesting toward the end of the first half. It felt like Chris and the brothers McCaffrey were going to try to, lead them back into it. I think they cut it to 9 twice, but then the back-to-back 3s from Wilcher and Griesel, they got it back to double digits, and it never was less than that throughout. So,
yeah. Juwan Gary banked into 3 at the end of the first half, gave him a 12-point lead at halftime. We forgot to ask him if he called that, or we didn't really get it. I guess we could have asked him, but nobody thought to ask him in the post game. But he banked that in to give him a 12-point lead. They traded buckets, start the second half, and then Nebraska hit him with a 7-0 run to stretch that thing out even further. And then they just kept hitting them. Juwan Gary had the poster dunk on Chris Murray. Bandamel had the poster dunk on Chris Murray.
Gary had the alley-oop. CJ threw him the oop, right?
No, Bandamel had the alley-oop. Gary had the other baseline drive and punch.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember who he dunked on, but somebody else was in the picture as well.
Yeah. No, he went because he hit the 3, and then the next possession he went baseline. That's what happened.
That 3 was from the corner. It was a swish. No use of the backboard for that one.
Yep.
And Gary led him in scoring, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 of 5 from 3, but 4 of 6 on 2s. He had, again, a lot of the cuts outside of the 5 3-point attempts, which, again, little high for my liking, as we've discussed, but he had a really good game. He got, again, lucky on one of those on the bank. The other one, he buried that thing. It was pure. Just missed another double-double, and he was the primary defender on Chris Murray. And Hoiberg said they were kind of basing their subbing strategy on trying to keep Gary out there to match up with Murray. When Murray went to the bench, that's when Gary got his rest, and Denham Dawson came in and got a couple stints on Murray as well when it didn't quite line up that way. So. He was kind of the guy leading the charge there on both ends of the court. But then, like I said, you got all the starters. CJ Wilcher, finally, big game when they needed it most. 13 points, shot 50% from the field, hit 3 threes, had 3 assists and just 1 turnover. So not just scoring. He had a couple nice passes there to generate points beyond his shot. So Sam Greasel, second double-double as a Husker, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Couldn't really get anything to go inside the arc, but he was 2 of 3 from 3 and 4 of 6 from the line. So played 35 minutes. Derek Walker only played 21 minutes because of foul trouble, 10 points, 8 boards, 4 turnovers, a little uncharacteristic there, but 4 fouls. And that was big because Blaze Keita, who had the ankle injury, got rolled up on at the end of the first half of that Queens game before the break. Still wasn't quite ready to go. Hoiberg listed him as questionable going into the game. He said they determined at shoot-around whether or not he was going to be able to go, and he was not ready to go. Hoiberg said he's progressing. They're going to get him a couple of treatments tomorrow and then see where he is in a couple days. But Wilhelm Breinbach was the primary backup 5, came in, got 2 fouls immediately. Mm-hmm. And Oleg Koyanet came in and got a couple of rebounds right away as the third string center filling in minutes. And Breinbach was able to stay out of foul trouble in the second half. Just 2 points between the two of them. Breinbach was only 1 of 5 from the field, although the 2 was a crazy spinning lefty jump hook from the elbow.
Yeah, quite possibly the most ridiculous shot in a game full of ridiculous shots that both went in and didn't go in. Yeah. That was my everything is happening. Going. Yeah. Everything is going Nebraska's way. He just made a lefty jump hook from the elbow.
I described it as a shot that I kind of try and horse, and he pulled it out in a Big Ten game. So yeah, but that was the only points he got out of the backup 5s, but 10 rebounds between the two of them. And Breinbach had some huge offensive rebounds in the second half. He had 2 on 1 possession. They still didn't end up scoring on it, but chewing up clock. They've already got a big lead at that point. So he played really well, and Hoiberg really praised his energy, said his impact went beyond that 1 for 5 shooting. And so there was even a brief stint there where they went without a big, and he had a really weird lineup out there. It was Banamel, it was Tominaga, it was Jamarcus Lawrence, it was Denham Dawson, and it was Juwan Gary, right? That was the 5 they had out there.
Yep.
And immediately, the first possession that 5 went out there, they forced a shot clock violation. He didn't leave it out there long, but that group held its own. They didn't end up they kind of treaded water, I believe, maybe +2, something like that. But so you even got away with small ball there. So credit to all those guys that maybe hadn't played a ton at this point for stepping up and giving them the minutes they needed. They didn't get a ton of production off the bench, but they held their own when they need to sit those starters down for stretches.
Absolutely. I thought it was good to see Jamarcus Lawrence finally hit a 3 at home. Yeah. I know we saw him make a couple in Kansas City at that K-State game, but that 3 he hit tonight was deep. Yeah. That was like, okay, hello Jamarcus. Welcome to the Big Ten, buddy. But we all kind of looked at each other when that lineup was out there like, this is what the hell are they doing? But and then they, like you said, they forced a shot clock violation. Just one of the many examples of, everything kind of coming up Nebraska, really. And then the exclamation point at the end from Denham Dawson, the rejection on a 2-on-1 breakaway, and he just goes up and pins Peyton Sanford.
I feel bad for Peyton, man. He had a really rough game, 0 for 9 with 2 turnovers in 9 minutes. At the end of the game, it's garbage time. He feels like he's going in there, bad intentions. I'm frustrated now. I'm going to go throw this thing down, at least get on the board here. And Denham Dawson had other plans. Like, he was not going to allow him to just go up and score that at the end, despite the game essentially being over, and went up and just spiked that thing. And I think Breinbach said, we knew exactly what was going to happen when we saw him out there, and Stanford was going for that. Like, it's what he does. It's the only way he knows how to play. And again, a few minutes, it's the kind of from those freshmen, from Breinbach, or from Lawrence, from Dawson, minutes are kind of all over the place for stretches. One is in the rotation, then the other falls out, and the other takes his place. Hoiberg's just doing a lot of experimenting, and I think kind of, all right, what do we need in this particular matchup? We'll give them both a chance and see who's feeling it a little bit more. But credit to those guys for staying ready and being able to make an impact no matter what their minutes look like in that particular game. So yeah, that was a big way to end it. It was interesting. So in the first half, Nebraska went on a 20-0 run, longest run of the season to this point. Previously, I believe 12 was the most they scored unanswered, and Iowa missed 16 straight shots during that 20-0 run. And they were shooting it from all over the place. They were taking threes. They were going to the rim. They're trying to finish through contact. There was just a lid on that rim for them.
Everything from threes to bunnies. I mean, they couldn't get anything to fall. I've seen some impressively long scoring droughts in that building in my time, but almost 9 minutes is 16 straight missed shots, almost 9 minutes of game time. That's a whole different animal. I don't know if I'd seen anything like that.
Well, and the impressive part is, so you hold them scoreless for nearly 9 minutes for 16 straight misses. Nebraska scores 20 in a row during that stretch. In the second half, Nebraska had its own scoring drought, nearly 7 minutes without a bucket. And Iowa only scored 6 points during those 7 minutes. They only got it down to 18. And that was essentially the game right there. Iowa was not able to take advantage of the scoring drought. Nebraska, despite shots not falling, the defensive intensity remained. They continued to make life difficult for Iowa, and they did enough to get out of there with the win. So that was Iowa's. We've seen these before. Where, all right, here it goes. The other teams kind of figured some things out. They're making their run now. Can Nebraska close this thing out? And they remain composed. They continued to play hard, and again gave up just 6 points during a 7-minute stretch where they didn't score points. So it got down to 15 late in the game, but no closer than that. And Nebraska ended up winning the thing by 16.
Yep. I mean, there's not much else to say, really. The only thing that was missing was a Fran McCaffrey meltdown. We got close. We were teetering. Probably think we got up to about a 7 on the FranCon warning alert system. I think that was probably the highest we got. I think the way I described it was, I've never seen an angrier man wearing a custom pair of Nike Dunks before. Because that, like you said, that Hawkeye yellow sticks out on the laces and on the shoes, and that you could see it up from where we were sitting. But Fran was kind of singing Nebraska's praises after the game. I was not expecting that. Obviously you got to at least somewhat be humble when you get your ass handed to you. Excuse my French, but we saw. I think the first thing that I thought in my head was comparing and contrasting him to Matt Painter. Two very different reactions and like ways they described Nebraska, but it also came back to just the emphasis on defense being the biggest difference. And Fran talked a lot about, he just kind of sounded baffled by like looking at his own team's numbers. Like we took 76 shots and we only scored 50 points. Like, no. And then he was very complimentary of Nebraska. He said
I got the quote right here. Yeah. And it is similar to, like, goes back to the Juwan Gary quote, like, hey, we're a new team this year, new group, new leadership. Matt Painter said the difference between last year and this year, that this group defends. It's a completely different team. Mm-hmm. And Fran McCaffrey, this is a completely different team. These guys, they're playing like a team. They're playing for each other. So we've seen these themes throughout the season so far with other coaches talking about Nebraska and echoing things that we've heard from Nebraska themselves about what they want this team to be and the potential they see for this group, whether it's the coaches or the players. And this game showed it. Like you and I were kind of skeptical defensively, like how good can they be defensively just based on their personnel and some of the stuff we saw early on in the season. They've polished a lot of things up. They've found a way to really lock in and play as a team on that end and fly around, play with great energy. And there were some great possessions where they were flying around. And even if they gave up a bucket at the end, there was that one possession where they had to dump off to Hurrdat at the end. But they flew out. They made 3, 4, 5 passes late in the shot clock before they had to work to get a layup. They finally got a layup at the very end of it, but it was not an easy possession. They had to work really hard to get that bucket. And that's what Nebraska needs to be. That's what Nebraska has been for stretches this season in its best performances. And that's what we saw tonight for sure. Just all the different different guys making plays. They had 7 blocks, only 4 steals. Iowa's a team that does not turn the ball over, only 6 turnovers. So that's even more impressive. You get 50 points with only 6 turnovers. So they were getting shots up almost every single possession. Nebraska just wouldn't let them score. 24 all points in the paint between the two of them. Nebraska made 1 more 3. They made 5 more free throws. So it's just overall impressive performance from Nebraska against Iowa. Again, earning praise from the other coaches. They're earning respect from the league. And like Juwan Gary said at the top, this team isn't a pushover anymore. And I think that is reflected by where they are now in KenPom.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're up to number 77. I will say one thing. I guess when I was trying to compare and contrast Fran and Painter, I guess it was more so just their tone. Fran sounded humbled. Painter was more like condescending. I don't know.
Yeah.
I never really liked either of them when I was in the Big Ten directly. They always both kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But it was more so just the tone, because they definitely emphasized the biggest difference is defense. And Fran could have done plenty of complaining about his own team tonight, and he didn't really do that. He was just kind of befuddled by his team, by their performance. Coming off a historically bad loss to Eastern Illinois, you'd probably expect your team to bounce back in some way, but they're definitely on the struggle bus on offense. But now we can kind of go from the micro to the macro and talk a little bit about the league. So take a trip around the Big Ten and go to sleep.
So with the win, Nebraska, they were, what were they? 89. They were 89 in KenPom going into this game. After the win, they are up to 77, which is the high point of the Fred Hoiberg era. Previously, it was 81 going into the season last year. They probably lost the season opener to Western Illinois and dropped 10 spots, and just basically kept dropping from there. Got as low as 185, it looks like. Finished the season around in the 132 they were going in the last game against Northwestern. So Nebraska, that's still only 13th in the Big Ten currently, ahead of Minnesota in 14, way down at 199. So Nebraska is only 13th, but it's basically there are 13 teams in the Big Ten, and then there's Minnesota.
Yes, I've kind of described the league as Purdue, gap. Everyone else but Minnesota, gap. Minnesota. They are clearly at the bottom. They're definitely the only game that I'd call for sure gotta win game in the league. Everything else Northwestern is Northwestern. They only beat an Ivy League team by 5 tonight, and not one of the Ivy League teams that takes basketball seriously. So I'll say that. But so yeah, the rest of the league right now is very, very hard to get a read on. I know Purdue's
Yeah.
top 5 in run down the conference in KenPom.
Yeah. So there are Purdue is actually down at 7 in KenPom at this point. But just looking at there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the top 25. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams in the top 51, which Northwestern is at 51. Then right ahead of Nebraska, 12 spots above, is Juwan Howard's Michigan team, sitting at 65, who just lost to a directional Michigan team. I forgot which one.
Central.
Okay.
Fire up chips. #Maction. That's who they lost to on a 3 with 11 seconds left tonight at home. Lost to Central Michigan tonight. Fire up chips. And what the hell's going on, Juwan? That's not a good look for Michigan. It's also not a good look. This isn't the Big Ten, but it's also not a good look for Kentucky, who they claimed that as their best win of the year so far, and then they went out and lost to Central Michigan. I think Jeff Goodman said Kentucky's best win is now Yale. That was a joke he made. But there's a lot of weird results happening in college basketball these last couple of weeks. That includes the Iowa Eastern Illinois thing, but Purdue at 7, and then
Ohio State is next at 14, Indiana at 19, who Nebraska's already seen.
And doesn't see again.
Yeah. Rutgers at 22, Maryland at 24, Illinois at 31, who is definitely on the struggle bus. Wisconsin at 35, Penn State at 41. Jalen Pickett's having a heck of a season for Micah Shrewsbury there. Michigan State at 42, who Nebraska will see next. Iowa dropped 9 spots with the loss to 46, and they dropped 11 spots in offensive efficiency from 10 down to 21.
That's what happens when you score 30 points under your average.
Honestly, surprised it wasn't more. But like I said, Northwestern at 51, Michigan 65, Nebraska 77, and Minnesota at 199. So I think just kind of what this illustrates is, one, Nebraska has separated itself clearly from kind of the tier that it has been every year under Hoiberg to this point, where you're down in the cellar, you're 13th or 14th for sure. You're one of the worst high major teams in the country. You're losing bye games, you're losing home games to mid majors. Nebraska has not done any of that. They've already beat other teams that are actually in that bottom tier in Florida State and Boston College, who actually they're like 7 teams, I think, worse than them at this, or 5 teams worse than them. They're a bottom 10 team in terms of high majors, but they're not the absolute worst. That belongs to Louisville, I believe, even ahead of Cal. So Nebraska has shown that it's progressed to the point where, all right, you can play in the Big Ten. Now they have to show that they can win in the Big Ten. And that's where this Iowa game is so huge for their confidence. Just the timing of it coming off of the layoff, the break, 8 days between games. You have people going home. Some people are getting in the gym. Others are just resting because they needed it. You never know what state people are going to be in when they get back from that break. You had a few days to work off whatever you did over the holidays. And they came out ready to play and got a huge win. So those are the kind of wins that they need. They need to win some of these kind of the toss-up ones that we talked about early in the year, the St. John's, the Kansas State, the Oklahomas, the teams that aren't overwhelmingly talented, that they're better than you, but they're not a team that outclasses you. Nebraska lost all those games during the non-conference up until the Creighton game, which I think is a different category altogether. It's hard to know what to make of Creighton, but
it's still a box checked on a resume, though.
Yes,
still a box checked on a resume.
And Creighton's still top 30 in KenPom despite losing 6 in a row. And now they have Kalkbrenner back. They're looking better to see if they've righted the ship. But so now you've got that Iowa win, you've got that the Creighton win, and then you've got the taking care of business wins over Florida State and Boston College. Mm-hmm. So Nebraska is sitting there at 8-6 right now. You're 1-2 in Big Ten play. Obviously, they've faced two of the three toughest teams in the Big Ten, according to KenPom, right already. And they nearly beat Purdue, and they weren't at full strength when they played at Indiana. So right now, I mean, this team, I think we've said this before, but this team is very close to kind of the top end of what I thought this season was capable of being.
I agree with that completely and totally. And I think the team, well, the second highest ranked team in KenPom in the Big Ten is Ohio State. They only have Ohio State once, and I believe that's a home game. I think that's coming up I think it's in the second or third week of January. That'll be definitely, there'll certainly be a test. And then, their next game against Michigan State, I think if there's any coach in the Big Ten, aside from Fran McCaffrey, who Fred Hoiberg knows well, it's Tom Izzo. So they'll definitely know how to prepare for Michigan State, and Michigan State's kind of a weird team in a weird spot, a lot of weird pieces, but it's always tough to win at the Breslin Center. I learned, I never got to go there as a manager, but that's what they always, that's what they beat into us was, no matter how bad you think they are, and no matter how good you think you are, it's tough to win there. So there's just places like that in the Big Ten. And there's just a lot. There's a lot of teams who have good wins and questionable losses. It's very, very messy. I don't really know what to make of it. For what it's worth, both Bart Torvik and KenPom now have Nebraska's projected record at 15-16. Which, it's inching up. I think it was 12 wins at the start of the year, if I remember correct on KenPom. I think it was 12. So it's creeping up there little by little. And then if you really want to talk Crazy Town, Crazy Town Fever Dream, the folks over at teamrankings.com give Nebraska a, drumroll please, 6.6% chance to make the NCAA tournament. So if you really want to get crazy fantasy land, just going to plant the seed of, do you celebrate a play-in game win as your team's first NCAA tournament win? Just going to plant that seed and not say anything about that again. So just think about that. Just think about that. 12 seed play-in game. How's Dayton in March? But just gonna leave that there. So yeah, I mean, the Big Ten right now, I mean, we've talked about this off pod plenty and after pods plenty, and it's just, I think we both agree that they've shown the potential. They've shown the potential to, I mean, there's no other way to put it. They've shown the potential to overachieve. It's just a matter of how much can they overachieve, and can they, they've established the identity. They've established their points of emphasis. It's guard hard, fly around, bust your ass, and rebound the ball. They've established all of those things.
And then hope the ball goes in enough for you to get the win.
Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's still crazy to think. I mean, I can only imagine how Iowa fans felt watching this game, going, probably thinking we're playing a Fred Hoiberg team that can't shoot the ball. Like, what the hell? He's the mayor of Ames. Like, he was synonymous with shooting and offense for 30 years, and now he's trying to be Tony Bennett. Like, it's still hard to process. It's still hard to process, but I think you and I are definitely on the same page with this group, and now it's just time to buckle in for the Big Ten grind. And I think the goal remains to not be playing on Wednesday night in Chicago, and we can leave it there for now, and maybe revisit that in a month.
Yeah. It is worth noting that it looks like Malik Hall is making his return for Michigan State's game against Buffalo. They make their return from their break on Friday, which it now is, as we have crossed beyond midnight into the wee hours on Friday. So It's possible by the time you listen to this that game already have happened, but that they are getting a little bit healthier. Malik Hall is an important piece for them that's been out for a while. They are Michigan State is 47 in offense, 51 in defense. So good on both sides of the floor. Not really elite. They're not really elite anywhere. Looking at their profile here, so it's just kind of a decent at everything, and not really great in any one area. So it'll be an interesting matchup there. You've got AJ Hoggard, Tyson Walker in the backcourt for them, Joey Hauser in the front court as a guy that can step out and score from the perimeter as well as finish inside. And we'll see what Malik Hall looks like coming back. He has a chance to be kind of a tough matchup for what he's capable of doing, but don't know with kind of the first game back what that'll look like. So it'll be second game back probably when Nebraska plays them. So
it looks like later today, as we say this, yes. Now that it's Friday, we were those kids at the sleepover who, when it went to midnight, it's tomorrow now. That's us. It looks like later today is kind of the last wrapping up with a non-con in the Big Ten on Friday, and then on Sunday we're in the end game now. We're in conference play on Sunday with Maryland and Michigan, Iowa, Penn State. That'll be extra interesting. And then Ohio State, Northwestern. Some people may take a glance at Northwestern's 10-2 record. I'm here to tell you that 10-2 record is fraudulent as hell, and you should not buy into that at all. It appears KenPom has, because they're ranked 51 in KenPom. Their two losses are a 1-point loss, 43-42 to Auburn. That game was played in a ballroom in Cancun. Right. It doesn't really mean much of anything. And then they got absolutely blitzed by a bad Pittsburgh team. And I don't think they've played anyone else that's worth anything. They beat Georgetown, who's the worst team in the Big East. There are some of the worst by-game opponents imaginable on this list. Yes, they have the Michigan State win, who Nebraska plays next. But, I mean, they beat DePaul by 40, and then they beat an Ivy League school who doesn't care about sports by 5 tonight. It's
Michigan State and Liberty. Shout out to Shala Robinson, Kearney's finest. Those are their only two top 100 KenPom wins to this point. Forget top one, only two top 125 wins to this point, because DePaul would be third at 126, and DePaul is bad. They're not good, and they've been ravaged by injuries as well. So they won that game by a lot, but DePaul was very shorthanded. There's not a lot on this resume. They are 9th in defense right now, but again, they played a lot of bad and injured teams at this point.
Yes, they have. So I'd say on Sunday, if you're looking to ring in the new year by, looking around the Big Ten, maybe check in on Maryland, Michigan. Michigan's obviously in a weird spot, coming off a loss to Central Michigan. I still don't know what Maryland is under Kevin Willard. Kevin Willard had some interesting comments on his radio show just before the holiday, where we came to the conclusion that he was just making stuff up and just saying, like, thinking things that applied to his last team at Seton Hall applied to this Maryland team, and just filling Mark Turgeon's shoes as the guy who complains about the conference and complains about the way they schedule. But that's for another day. And then, like you said, Penn State, Jalen Pickett having a hell of a year. That game against Iowa, that'll be interesting on a Sunday, Sunday afternoon, New Year's Day. Who knows if there will be people there, because it's Penn State basketball at the Bryce Jordan Center.
Top 5 players in the Big Ten this season, according to KenPom. Number 1, Zach Edey, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Jalen Pickett, point guard for Penn State, who does a little bit of everything. Then you got Cliff O'Murray for Rutgers, Terrence Shannon for Illinois, and Tyler Wall for Wisconsin.
Yeah. So before you hear from us next, I recommend you take a look at Penn State, because I don't want Nebraska people to like see Penn State on the schedule and assume that's a easy win by any means. Because I really like what Shrewsbury's done there, and I've enjoyed watching Jalen Pickett. Don't buy into Northwestern. Ohio State's got some dudes. I don't know where Holtman keeps finding these dudes, but I really like Bryce Sensabaugh.
Yes.
We'll talk about Bryce Sensabaugh at length the week of that game. That is a promise. And then on Monday night, you got Purdue Rutgers, but not at the rack, at Mackey. So we'll see how that goes. I don't expect any half court heaves after the buzzer to impact that game like we got last year in Piscataway. So that is kind of our little overview of the Big Ten right now. I think there's only there's 3 Big Ten teams ranked. You still have the number 1 team in the country in Purdue, who Nebraska took to the wire. You've got Wisconsin, who I don't know what to. That's the team I don't know what to think about the most. I think
that's been the case for me for like 5 years. Every year I don't like their talent, and every year they somehow find a way to win games. But yeah.
Yeah, like Tyler Wall, they've got 4 guys in double figures, but 2 of them are Tyler Wall and Stephen Crowell. So I'm just like, what? Like, what do we make of this? Chucky's still doing Chucky stuff, averaging 12, 4, and 3, basically. I like to round up. I'll round up there. I'll do that for you, Chuck. And yeah, that's definitely the team I don't know what to think of the most. And they're the number 15 team in the country, and they're 9-2. And then Indiana at 16. Xavier Johnson hurt, out. I forget how long he's out, but I watched him get hurt in person. That was fun. And then so it's kind of like there's kind of 2 factions of Indiana fans. There are the Indiana fans who are like, we might be better without Xavier Johnson. Shh, be quiet. We might be better without him. We don't want to say that. And then there's people who are like, we don't have a true ball handler. We need him back. So they're in a weird spot. I watched them get it handed to them 2 weeks ago. And yeah, they're a weird group too, but I feel like they'll figure it out. Like, Mike Woodson's seen a lot of basketball. He'll figure something out. So yeah, there's Bigelow's beginner's guide to the Big Ten. There's how I'm feeling about the league right now.
Yeah, I think it's a good place to end here. I thought we were going to knock this thing out in like 30 minutes, and here we are approaching 45 minutes because there's always something to talk about.
And what do the two of us like? And what do the 2 of us like to do? Talk. Yep. We do like to talk. So,
yeah, you go to hillvarsity.com. You can read my gamer from this Iowa game. You can read my column recapping the non-conference and kind of highlighting the difference between Nebraska with and without Derek Walker and their performance on the court. You can play around with Bart Torvik a little bit there to get some interesting numbers there, and I did so. Check out Huskers Illustrated. Bigelow had his game up.
Yep, go read my game story. Perfect time for a game story to come out at 11:30 at night on a Thursday. As we say, we're recording this podcast after midnight. But yeah, my game story was posted just about an hour ago over on HuskersIllustrated.com. You can also go find it on my Twitter at Jacob A. Bigelow if you want to go check that out. Go give it a read, and like Jacob said, go read his stuff. Yeah, he's a lot more analytical and thought-provoking in his writing than I am. So go check him out over in Hell Varsity, and stop over on Huskers Illustrated to get a recap of Nebraska basketball beatdown, the first step.